There is a moment many foreigners experience in Thailand that nobody talks about. It doesn't happen when you land. It doesn't happen in the airport taxi. It doesn't even happen during the first nights out in Bangkok or a beach in Phuket. It happens later, when the excitement quiets down, when the messages on your phone slow down, when the nightlife stops feeling new, and when the novelty becomes routine, and you find yourself sitting alone in a place that was supposed to fix everything, surrounded by thousands of people, but still feeling completely disconnected. Not in a dramatic way, not in a movie scene kind of way, in a quiet, everyday, unsettling way that slowly becomes your normal. And that is where a very different version of Thailand begins. One that rarely makes it into travel videos. One that many people only understand when it is too late to easily walk away from it. This is the side of Thailand that is not sold, but it is lived by many foreigners every day. Thailand is one of the most talked about destinations for long-term travel and relocation in the world. Each year, millions of visitors arrive for holidays, and hundreds of thousands return again, some eventually staying for months, years, or even decades. The appeal is obvious: affordable living, warm weather, vibrant nightlife, freedom from the pressures of Western life, and a sense that anything feels possible. But behind that surface level experience, there is a quieter reality that does not trend on social media. This video explores the lived experience of some foreigners who stay long-term in Thailand. Not tourists, not short-term visitors, but people who try to build a life here. It is important to be clear from the beginning, this is not a warning against Thailand, nor is it a romanticization of struggle. It is an exploration of the emotional, psychological, and social realities that often appear after the initial excitement fades. Because what many people discover is that relocating your life does not automatically solve internal problems. Sometimes it simply relocates them. For many foreigners, Thailand begins as a form of escape from stress, escape from routine, escape from financial pressure, and escape from emotional burnout and identity confusion back home. And for a time, this escape feels real. Life becomes simpler, rent is cheaper, food is accessible, the climate is obviously warm, social rules feel looser, and everyday stress seems to dissolve. This phase is often described as the honeymoon period. During this time, everything feels meaningful. New streets feel exciting, new friendships feel instant, and nights out feel endless. There is a sense of reinvention, a belief that life has been reset. Psychologically, this phase is powerful because it combines novelty with relief. Studies on relocation stress and expatriate adjustments often show that early stages of relocation produce elevated mood due to environmental novelty and reduced responsibility pressure. But this phase is temporary and it masks something important. You have not actually solved your life. You have simply changed the environment around it, and eventually the environment stops feeling new. So at some point, Thailand stops feeling like a constant experience and starts feeling like a place where you simply live. This is where the shift begins. Daily routines form, the same streets, the same bars, the same conversations, the same faces. What once felt exciting becomes familiar, and familiarity removes stimulation. Many foreigners report that this is the point where motivation starts to fade, not dramatically, but gradually. You begin to notice that life has settled into repetition, and work routines, if you have them, become predictable. Social life often narrows, excitement becomes less frequent, and if your life structure is not strong, something else starts to appear. Stillness. And in that stillness, uncomfortable thoughts often surface. This is where the contrast becomes visible, because Thailand did not remove life's challenges, it simply removed distractions that were previously covering them. One of the most consistently reported experiences among long-term foreigners in Thailand is loneliness. Not always obvious loneliness, not isolation in the literal sense, but a deeper form. Being surrounded by people but not feeling connected to them in a meaningful way. Thailand's expat communities are often fluid. People arrive and leave frequently. Friendships form quickly but can also disappear just as fast. Many social interactions revolve around nightlife, alcohol, or casual settings rather than deeper long-term bonding. Over time, this can create a cycle. You meet people, you socialize, they leave, you repeat, and gradually emotional attachment becomes harder. Some foreigners describe going weeks or even months without meaningful personal connection outside surface level interactions. There is also a cultural layer. Language barriers, while not always prohibitive, limit depth of integration for many. As a result, some foreigners remain in what is often described as an expat bubble, a parallel social world that exists alongside Thai society rather than within it. Even in busy cities, loneliness can persist because presence is not the same as connection, and this is where the psychological contradiction forms. A place that feels socially alive on the surface can still feel emotionally empty underneath. In environments where structure is weak and social life is inconsistent, coping behaviours often develop. One of the most commonly discussed in expat communities is alcohol consumption. Thailand's nightlife culture is highly accessible. Alcohol is affordable. Social drinking is normalised in many expat zones. Bars and entertainment venues are widespread. For many, this is simply part of social life, but for others, it becomes something more central, not necessarily addiction in a clinical sense, but reliance, a default way to fill time, a default way to meet people, and a default way to avoid silence. Over time, this can reinforce cycles of short-term stimulation followed by longer periods of low mood. There are also reports in expat discussions of individuals who gradually lose structure in their routines, especially if work is remote, inconsistent, or absent. Without structure, days can blur together, and when days blur together, habits tend to take over. Now, this is not unique to Thailand, but Thailand's combination of low-cost living, strong nightlife, availability, and transient social circles can amplify these patterns for some individuals. Now, another less visible challenge is identity drift. This refers to the gradual weakening of a stable sense of identity over time in a long-term foreign environment. For some foreigners, particularly those who leave structured careers or social systems behind, life in Thailand can become less defined. There is no cultural belonging. Home becomes distant and unfamiliar. Host culture remains partially inaccessible, and personal identity becomes less anchored. This can create a subtle sense of disconnection, not necessarily distressing at first, but noticeable over time. Compounding this is the administrative reality of long-term stay. Visa requirements, financial proof obligations, periodic renewals, and a regulatory uncertainty can add background stress. Even for those who live in Thailand, the sense of permanence is often conditional, and that lack of permanence can affect psychological grounding. It is also important to understand that Thailand does not produce a single outcome. Two people can live in the same city and have completely different experiences. For some, Thailand becomes deeply positive. They build strong relationships. They integrate into local life. They find purpose, structure, and stability. For others, the experience becomes more fragmented, not necessarily negative in an extreme sense, but unstable. The difference is rarely Thailand itself. It is structure. People who maintain purpose, routine, and meaningful connection tend to adopt more successfully. Those who rely primarily on novelty, nightlife, or escape often experience stronger emotional decline once novelty fades. Thailand is often presented as either a paradise or a trap. The reality is neither. It is simply a different environment with different pressures. For some, it offers freedom and opportunity that would not exist elsewhere. For others, it exposes emotional and psychological gaps that were previously masked by familiar surroundings. The important truth is this: changing countries does not automatically change internal patterns. Wherever you go, you take yourself with you. Thailand can amplify freedom, but it can also amplify emptiness. And the difference between those outcomes often comes down to structure, connection, and awareness of what you are actually trying to build, not escape, but life. The experience of living in Thailand as a foreigner is complex. It's not a simple success story. It's not a simple warning. It is a layered reality shaped by psychology, environment, and personal responsibility. And while the surface often shows beauty, freedom, and excitement, the deeper experience depends on what each individual brings with them, because eventually every place stops being a fantasy and becomes just life. The only question is whether that life is built or just drifted into. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.
28 เชียงใหม่ที่จอดพื้นที่3นะเจ้า